Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today, we're going to be talking with a meteorologist. What? What are we saying? What? A meteorologist? His name is Rob Gutro, and he is also an author and a paranormal investigator and medium. And he jokingly calls himself medium rare because he thinks that he's still developing, and we all are. That's absolutely true. I don't think anyone reaches the penultimate peak of mediumship and can say, I have arrived. I think we all are working toward that goal. Rob is really interesting. He's been with us on the show before talking about animal communication. And today he's going to be sharing with us a double murder ghost investigation, which inspired ghost tracking. And he also is going to share with us a story about a spirit-led treasure hunt. But before I let him talk, I want to tell you about his books. He's written one called Pets and the Afterlife, Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead and Ghosts and Spirits, Insights from a Medium. And all of them are available in paperback and ebook on Amazon.com. And Rob, welcome to our show today. Appreciate your being here.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for having me back. It's good to be back.
I'm happy you decided you wanted to. What is the best way for people to reach you if you would like them? Sometimes people like to follow along by checking people out on the web while the show's rolling. So what's your contact information for people?
There are a number of ways that they can learn about me. One is on Facebook, as many people are. They can just go on Facebook and type in Rob Gutro, Gutro, author medium, and they can get me. And my website is ghostsandspiritsinsights.blogspot.com.
Okay, that's Ghosts and Spirits Insights blogspot.com. Okay, yeah. Very cool. Well, so last time we had a great time, and this time we thought we'd go into these topics that we mentioned. Tell us, well, before we go into it, I guess what I want to say is, you said that well, I don't even know which end to pick this up with. I was thinking about, had you done investigations before you encountered this double murder ghost investigation?
Yes, I have. I published my first book at the end of 2009. And in 2010, I actually gave a talk to Inspire Ghost Tracking about the book, and then I joined the group. The double murder investigation happened, I believe, in 2012. So I had gone on quite a number of investigations with them before doing this particular one.
And where is ghost tracking based?
Inspired Ghost Tracking is based in Hanover, Maryland.
Okay. I think I read that wrong and thought it inspired ghost tracking, and now I've got it, Inspired Ghost Tracking. And that's in Hanover, Maryland. Okay. Yeah. Well, so tell us, I guess, like, where do you want to pick it up from? Do you want to pick it up from the tail, or do you want to pick it up from some background that leads up to the tail?
Is that a pun on Pets in the Afterlife?
Maybe. No, just kidding.
And actually, by the way, on February 14th, I published Pets and the Afterlife 2.
Oh, congratulations. So how many books is that for you?
4 for me, and I'm actually writing the 5th one right now about ghosts that I've encountered in England, Scotland, and Ireland.
Oh, how interesting. Oh, I love it. And I love how you write, too. I've read pieces of Pets and the Afterlife and Lessons Learned. Thank you for sharing them with me.
Thanks. I guess how to start with the investigation. I will tell you that as part of the team from Inspired Ghost Tracking, the manager, Margaret, often gets emails or phone calls or contact through the web from people who own houses, private houses, and they have concerns about a haunting. So Margaret talks to them for about an hour, does an interview, finds out all the things that are going on, and then what she does is we break it down in the investigation. There's people with technical things like infrared cameras, voice recorders, EMF detectors, all kinds of equipment that go in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mediums go in. And the mediums just give their impressions without knowing any information. Margaret only gives us the address less than an hour before we're supposed to be there.
Oh, excellent. Good,
So
good ethical approach. I like that.
Yeah, that way we have no way of knowing anything.
You can't do your research ahead of time. Like we have time for that anyway.
Exactly. So what happened, actually, this is a story in my book, Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead.
Oh, okay.
And it happened actually on August 17th, 2011. We went in at 7 o'clock at night. It was outside a private home. And Margaret always leads when the mediums go in. And we always have, the mediums each have a team member so that they can take notes or ask questions and keep a digital recorder. So Margaret went in the house and she knew all the things that were going on. And she said, "Do you guys want to come in?" And both myself and Troy, one of the other mediums, said, "No, we need to go explore what's outside."
Mm-hmm.
As it turned out, the first thing we were drawn to was a white door on the side of what was the garage, now made into a den. We felt a lot of energy there. And although there was an electrical box outside of it, it was not giving off EMF for electromagnetic field readings. So we knew that white door would have something to do with what's happening in the house.
Cool.
Once we get in the house, Margaret asked where we want to go. And I was drawn immediately downstairs to the basement. And I didn't know why. I mean, I still don't, I was just befuddled what was happening there. But so I went down to the basement, and there were a couple of areas that were really full of energy. And as a medium, you can really sense the changes in energy in different parts of the house.
Yeah, both positive and negative, and some areas that are more active feeling and some that are more static. You can kind of pick up emotions too as you walk around.
Yes. So this was a split-level house. There was an upstairs and the stairway to the downstairs. And in the downstairs, there was a furnished apartment, and off the apartment, there were 2 other bedrooms. A family was living in this house, a family with 4 children.
Okay.
So, and what they reported seeing, as it turned out, I found out at the end of the investigation, they saw shadow figures, they had covers pulled off of them, they felt cold spots, they felt nervous. A whole bunch of things were going on in that house. And they wanted to know what was happening. That's why we were called in.
Oh, that's very interesting. And, some of our listeners may have conditions in their house that are sort of getting their attention, and they can really range along a huge spectrum. Some of the things you've mentioned do happen. I have a lady that was just talking to me today about her house and a door that just slams in the middle of the night.
Ooh.
Yeah. I said, well, maybe I'll come down and check it out. We'll see. So go ahead, tell us the story.
Okay. So long story short, when we got down to the basement, there was a, to the right, there was a furnished apartment. To the left, there was a small furnace room that led into the den, the den that wound up having the white door on the outside. When the other medium and I walked through the furnace room, it was like walking through a pool, like a pool full of water. The energy was that strong. So we sensed there was panic, there was fear, there anxiety, and we got out. We came through into the den, and those feelings were a lot less.
Yeah, and as you're walking through, for those that maybe don't know about this sensation, as a medium, you're reading those emotions from the environment. They're not necessarily your emotions, but you connect your understanding to that feeling empathically. How would that describe it the best, or do you have how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think you did a pretty good job right there.
Okay, I was just clarifying because it wasn't you feeling the panic. It was that you sensed that there had been panic, and I don't know, it kind of like resonates or something. I love that feeling that I mean, I don't love the feeling, but I love the description of walking sort of through a pool. It is like a very denser feeling. Okay, next.
Yes. So, we of course walked, we did some questions and answers in there, and then we walked around the house. And as we walked around the house, we kept getting more and more sensations. The other medium, Troy, felt like there was a big blood spot in the basement apartment. Mm-hmm. We felt cold spots in the basement bedrooms, and then we went back into that den again. And we went right back through that crazy room, that furnace room. So once there, what was interesting is that we both sensed a woman, and we sensed that it was violence in the home, and the woman died in the home.
Yes.
After about 10 minutes, Troy, the other medium, and I realized that we were talking to two different women. So he asked me to describe the woman I was talking to, and I said I was talking to a woman in her 60s or late 60s, maybe 70, and he said he was talking to a younger woman who was in her 30s. So of course, we're totally puzzled. At first, when we didn't identify that we were talking to women of two different ages, we thought it was a domestic situation and a husband had killed his wife. Mm-hmm. That was the feeling that we got. But when we shared the ages, then we knew something else was going on.
Oh, yes.
So Troy described the woman, the younger woman, and got a name, and it turned out to be very close to the name of a 30-year-old woman that was killed in the house.
Wow.
I sensed an older woman, a frail-looking woman, thin and dark brown hair. She showed me that she was standing at the counter preparing food, like chopping vegetables. And I later confirmed she managed a bar where she served drinks and made food.
Oh, very nice. Good work. Yeah.
So we then walked. We then went upstairs, and that was a trip. When I got to the top of the stairs, I felt like I was being pushed down the stairs after being bludgeoned on the back of the head. And I really felt like I was being pushed down the stairs. So the older woman was sharing, the older or the younger woman was sharing that information about how they died.
Wow, yeah.
As ghosts unfortunately always do, so they can prove who they are. Right. So, not to spend a lot of time on this, but
no, take your time. We're not in a rush. We've got time.
Well, there was over the course of walking through the house, I was knocked on the back of the head. I was pushed down the stairs. I was stabbed, and I was shot. And
when you say that, explain how that feels. Well, of course, it feels like those things happen to you, but where, like, describe that a little bit, if you will, if it doesn't bother you to remember what that feels like.
I felt more pain to death than I can count. Well, it's easy to feel like how you're being pushed down the stairs and being hit in the back of the head. I've never been shot, thankfully, and I've never been stabbed, but I felt a stabbing pain on my side, as if somebody put a knife in there. And that was, the ghost was conveying that that's what happened to them.
Yes.
Feeling shot, I felt an immense and sudden pressure in my chest, and then it spread. And I assume that's what a bullet feels like.
Yes.
so those were kind of crazy. Troy didn't get the sense of how they died or what happened to them, but he was able to get names and other things.
Mm-hmm.
So after we went upstairs, we went back downstairs again. We kept going up and downstairs because we kept being drawn to these places.
Yes.
Apparently, the two women who are ghosts and were inhabiting the house, for some reason, which we would later figure out, kept walking back and forth. So we went downstairs into one of the bedrooms for the children, and he felt an overwhelming sense of emotional energy, like a woman had been crying in that spot in panic or despair. Mm. That was right near the blood spot that he sensed was in the rug in the downstairs apartment.
Oh, yes.
So we would later learn that one of the current residents in the house was actually awakened in that particular bedroom with a shadow figure at the foot of her bed, pulling on her covers and pulling on her actual foot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
For the living people that are in the house, that's what they were experiencing.
Yes.
Yes.
And if anybody's listening and you have something mysteriously pull on your foot and there's nobody there, then you have a problem.
They probably know they have a problem. They probably just don't know what it is. Yeah. I think that the need to communicate, and you already said they were there, or they were at the time, because people kind of get stuck. I call them the tweeners. Because they kind of get stuck between the worlds because they, sometimes the things that happen are so horrific that they can't process them or move forward. And sometimes they need clarity of that situation to be relayed to people that are behind, that are still in the living world, the physical world.
We actually found out why they stayed behind too, which was also...
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Let's see. I think we went back into back to the furnace room again, and it was actually the feeling, the energy was so strong. We both got vertigo, and we almost fell against the walls. So
being in a dense energy is not fun at all. Yeah. So
later we learned that furnace area played a big role in what happened. I'll jump to the end so that people will have an understanding about who these two women were.
Okay.
It turns out the two women were a woman the older woman owned the home, and she had a renter in the basement, a male renter. Mm-hmm. The younger woman was the woman's daughter-in-law who was over visiting when the murders happened.
Wow.
So going back to the furnace area, at the end of the investigation, Margaret, the leader of Inspired Ghost Tracking, told us that one of the women was still alive and struggling with her attacker as he dragged her through the furnace room.
Oh, my word, yes.
Left that emotional imprint.
Oh, definitely. Yes. You picked it up. Yeah.
So he dragged both women through that furnace room and through the den and out the white door.
There's your white door. Yep.
Yeah. So we learned all that afterward. We sensed that there was a shadow of a man standing behind Troy, the other medium. Mm-hmm. And we tried to figure out if that was residual, or we knew it was not intelligent haunt. We knew it was either residual or it was being projected by the women to tell us what was going on there.
Yeah. And what did you say that again for people that are not familiar with that? You said it was not an intelligent haunt. Is that what you said?
Yes, which means that the ghost, if it's a ghost, it can interact with you. That's what intelligent haunt is for those folks.
It's sort of the living spirit versus an imprint or a residue of emotional energy. Yes.
So we figured out that it was, in fact, a projection. After we told it to leave, and it didn't move.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened. We didn't even get anything out of it. So we realized it was a projection. And
that's such an interesting discernment and differentiation for a medium, to have been able to identify the difference between a sentient being that's connecting with you and a projected image, because energy follows focus and thoughts create things, and we can create fear. And
mm-hmm.
if that's connected to a person, then it can create sort of like a specter or something, but it doesn't have sentience in and of itself, at least not at that point. So, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. That's for sure. But once we figured it out, then we knew that we only had the two ghosts to contend with.
Mm-hmm.
And the white door just blew us away. How this happened. So we later learned that what happened was this renter was on drugs, and there must have been an argument, and he bludgeoned the older woman at the top of the stairs, and she fell down the stairs, and then he proceeded to attack the younger woman. Where the blood spot was downstairs in the apartment, that's where he shot them and stabbed them both. He was obviously out of his mind.
Yeah. I wondered if the vertigo that you sensed had to do with his drug use, like that disorientation.
It very well could have. We were thinking that it was emotional energy of panic.
Oh, could be. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure that if they were fighting for their life, their bodies were shifting in orientation too. Wow.
So some of the other things, I mentioned that I got a strong headache on the front left side of my forehead, and before I got pushed down the stairs, and then I got hit from the back, and then, as I said, shot, stabbed. It was just awful.
Well, it's almost like overkill. Do you know what I mean? It's like, good God, like how many weapons do you need?
Yeah, exactly. This guy must have been pretty sick.
Yeah.
So one thing I asked the manager to do when we were in that den room where they were dragged out, and by the way, he dragged them out through that door and he stuffed their bodies in the trunk of a car, which he drove to a parking lot about a mile away and abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
We later learned that. But when we were in the den, I actually asked the manager, the ghost group manager, to turn off the recorder for a minute because I was hesitant to reveal the message I received.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her if the younger woman was sexually assaulted, because that's what I kept hearing.
Yeah, hearing. Yeah.
Margaret told me that it was true.
Wow. Yeah.
And I mean, it's just too horrible for me to even conceive. Number one, murdering somebody, brutalizing somebody, and then sexually assaulting them afterward.
Yeah. Well, they say that it isn't really a sex crime. It's a crime of dominance, a crime of power. So, and who knows what object of anger they represented to him, because of course he wasn't seeing them as who they are, or he wouldn't have done what he did. So there's that projection. Yeah.
Well, I will tell everybody that the good news is that the police caught him.
Really? And that's amazing. Wow.
Convicted on 3 counts of capital murder and 5 related charges in the slaying of his landlady and the younger relative.
Wow.
And that was back in 2002.
Mm.
So we went in on this investigation in August 2011. These women, these ghosts, had been there 9 years already.
Mm. Yes.
So one other interesting thing is that during the nighttime investigation by the team that had the electronic equipment,
Mm-hmm.
only in the furnace room did they get a photograph of an orb. And for your listeners, an orb is the most simple form a ghost can take. And I distinguish orbs from reflections and bugs and pollen and all that if they have a design or a face in them.
Right, right. There is an organizational structure to them. Yeah. And their lights, the colors can vary too. I haven't been lucky and captured any on film, but sometimes it seems like colors are representational too, but so they were able to capture an orb on film.
Yes, right in the furnace room that we kept feeling that vertigo, that intense energy, which seemed to be where the women were hanging out more.
Right, right.
So we blew up the picture of the orb, and what we found was really unnerving. You can see clearly, and I have this printed in the Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead book on page 86. It is a photograph of a female's face, and you can clearly see one eye, her nose, her mouth, her cheek, and her chin, and another eye in shadow. When I saw that, it just gave me chills. This is a picture of a younger woman. And it's, so for anybody that, doesn't maybe...
Yeah, kind of scoffs at the idea of orbs being spirits. Yeah.
Yeah. There really was, we have photographic proof of the face of one of the dead women in the house. Yeah.
And sometimes they're full body apparitions too, and then of course as mediums, you and I see them, or at least get an impression of sometimes their features or sense of them. It's funny, sometimes people say, do you see them? But we don't necessarily see them, like, although spirit can manifest almost physically. Usually it's more like, for me, maybe this is for me, like I see it sort of where I would see an image from my memory. So it's very clear, but it's just, I more sense motion, and then sometimes it's like my brain, it's like without it going through my eyes, the image starts imprinting and developing on my mind. I don't know. How is it for you?
I usually see them in my mind, and actually in a lot of investigations, I actually sketched them out.
Oh, very cool.
And what's really crazy is that so far, 100% of the time, the people have said those are exactly the faces of the people that have been haunting their home.
Yes. They call that spirit art because you're drawing the faces. I do a little bit of that, but I don't do it like for clients or anything like that. It's just more other stuff, but wow, that's really cool. So I know that we're coming close to the bottom of the hour here, just in preparation that we're going to be there in a second. I'm still curious though, because you said that they used to be there. Maybe when we come back, you can tell us about why they're no longer there and how that happened. Okay?
Okay.
All right. If you want to find Rob, he's at Rob Gutro, author medium on Facebook.com. And he's also got a website, Ghosts and Spirits Insights.blogspot.com. We'll be right back at the back half of the hour. Welcome back. Our guest today is Rob Gutro. He is a psychic detective, animal communicator, paranormal investigator, and author. And if you're interested, if you missed the first part of the show or would like to listen to it again or any of our other past episodes, you can find them on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. I think we've crossed the 500 subscriber mark just recently. It's just look into Medium, go to YouTube and put in From a Medium's Perspective, or you can put in me directly. My channel is under Medium Tracey Lockwood, or you can find the past episodes on the page that says so on my website at mediumtracylockwood.com. If you're trying to find Rob, he is found at his website, ghostsandspiritsinsights.blogspot.com. I need to take a minute, and I'd like to take a minute to thank Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com for providing us the opportunity to air our show. Revolution Radio is the #1 free listener-supported radio station in the world. So please help our efforts and airtime by visiting the station support page at freedomslips.com and show them that you appreciate what they do. Next week, I'm going to have another author with us. He is also a holistic practitioner. His name is Steve Wentworth, and he has written a book called Fifth Times the Charm. It's about surviving life and cancer, and he's a metaphysical perspective, and I'm bringing him on the show for that reason. His book, again, is called Fifth Times the Charm. And so back to our guest today, Rob Gutro. Welcome back.
Thank you, Tracy.
Before the hour, the break here, we were talking about the double murder ghost investigation that you and another medium had done along with Inspired Ghost Tracking Paranormal Investigation Group. So we were talking about the fact that these spirits had been in the home for 9 years, and that the orb had the face of one of the women clearly evident upon digitally enlarging, not enhancing, but enlarging to where her face was clear. So how come they're not in the house any longer?
Well, here's what's interesting. They actually are in the house still.
Okay.
We've gone back twice, and we tried to cross them over, and they refused to go.
Oh.
It's pretty unusual that we're not able to get them to cross, but we all maintain our personalities and memories on the other side in spirit, and they were adamant that they were going to stay behind, and they were going to continually warn every family about the man that murdered them.
Oh.
So we even told them that the man is in prison and told them where, but they want to keep any family that lives in that house safe from any predators.
I know a few people, I've met a few people in life, and I call them the watchdogs. And they're people that have been deeply hurt, and they choose to be the sort of the heralds or the warners of our time. And part of them is just sort of trapped in fear. And you can imagine if they had gone through what they did, even as their understanding increases because of the work that you've done with them, that, everyone does cross over in their own time. I would say the majority of people do go straight across, but there are people like that they just need a little extra time too. And sometimes it's not because of violent things. I've had people that just really enjoyed hanging out and wandering around and looking at stuff, not really too interested in crossing over, just wanted to sort of experience life out of body in the physical world or something. I don't know. Have you encountered some too?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, was there anything else you wanted to add before we get into our juicy second story, which is a spirit-led treasure hunt?
No, not really.
Okay.
That's pretty much the story. And just if anybody thinks they have a ghost in their house, they should look for a paranormal investigator to help them figure it out.
Oh, yeah, to find out the answers to that. And often negative vibrations, I do house clearings locally. I don't generally go out of my area. I'm sure they could be done remotely, but then I feel like it's in the hocus pocus range. And, I'd have to have a special client to work with to do it at a distance. But I think it is important to understand the psychic activity, and because we all are psychic. And I kind of think that the terms psychic and medium are kind of superfluous because we all really have that ability. It's just those like you and I have developed our gift or abilities for whatever reason, or had encounters for whatever reasons that have enhanced that aspect in our life. But everybody has an awareness, otherwise the people that were in the house to begin with wouldn't be dragged off their bed or whatever was going on for them too,
Exactly.
So anyway, because really the veil is quite thin between the two worlds, and science is catching up with quantum physics and string theory and all that. So anyway, so I'm curious about the second story that you chose to share with us, and I wanted to encourage our listeners too, if you're enjoying hearing stories like this, you would probably like to check out Rob's books, Rob Gutro's books. So anyway, go ahead, Rob. Tell us a story. Tell us another story.
Thanks for the plug, Tracy. I appreciate it.
No worries. Well earned.
This is another chapter from my second book called Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead. And this is the book that's primarily about people. And then I wrote two of the other books, the latest two, about pets in the afterlife. So I went from people to pets, and I'll be going back to people with the next one.
Okay, good deal, good deal.
So this is a chapter that I call an amazing experience of how mediumship works, and it's chapter 4 in the book. And basically, for the listeners, mediumship is really like detective work. We get clues that either we have to decipher, or the person that they're for has to decipher them.
Yes.
And sometimes they're really easy to dismiss. Like, for instance, if a spirit stops a clock at the exact time they died, somebody could say the battery must have died. When
yeah, no,
spirits stop.
Yeah.
One thing I learned about ghosts and spirits is that there is no such thing as a coincidence.
Yes, that's true. That is true.
So this particular treasure hunt, I call this a treasure hunt because a spirit on the other side sent me all kinds of disconnected signs, symbols, words, and pictures, messages that made no sense to me at all, until I went down and visited his dad in March 2011. Now, who is this spirit and why did he come to me? Well, it turns out he was a very good friend, very close friend of my husband's, and his name was Ed, and he died in 1996.
Okay.
So I never met him. I never met him in life.
Well, you did meet him, but not in life, yes.
Yeah. What's interesting is that Ed has come to me since my husband and I have been together the last 10 years. Ed has come to me so many times. I feel like he's like a best friend that lives in another state.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I can relate. Interesting.
So, for instance, 3 days before we left for this 3-day weekend to visit his family in Central Virginia, Ed's spirit came to me and he kept repeating several things. And he said, jingle. And I'm like, I said to myself, it's March. What does that mean? And then he said something else is personal. He said the blue book. He showed me a blue jacketed book. And I had no idea what those things meant. So those were just two of the signs.
Uh-huh.
And the kicker story that I'll save for the end is the blue book.
Okay.
He gave me a whole bunch of other signs. And one thing he said was, he showed me a boat, and he said, it's a rowboat and it's a kayak. And I thought, how in the world can a rowboat be a kayak?
Right.
And vice versa. I was confused.
Right.
So we get down there and we wound up figuring it all out. We sat with his dad. Oh, and one other thing he said, there was a question about his passing.
Oh, okay.
He died in 1996 in a bedroom in his grandmother's house, and he had prescription medicines there.
Mm-hmm.
And for the last 15 years, people thought he committed suicide.
Oh.
One thing that Ed told me, he kept telling me, it was an accident. I mixed these two drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I never woke up.
That's really important sometimes for the spirit to be able to sort of clear their name or to clarify. Sometimes it is suicide, but sometimes it is accidental. And clarifying that can be a great solace for them to have their name or for the record made straight, whichever that way it was. And then also for the people left behind too. That's really an important distinction. Yes.
Well, it turned out to be a really key part of the visit, because in addition to that, he showed me an old soda fountain located in an old pharmacy, and I didn't know what that meant either. When I finally met his dad, it turns out his dad was a pharmacist. And his dad was a soda jerk when he was a teenager.
Oh, very cool.
So when I explained to his dad that Ed showed me that he mixed two prescription drugs by accident, his father immediately knew what drugs they were.
Oh.
And turns out that was responsible for his death. The same drug mix that killed Heath Ledger.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's wonderful for them to know that. Not wonderful that it happened, but wonderful to know that detail.
So as you can imagine, his dad was totally relieved and brought to tears, finally able to get peace that his son didn't commit suicide after 15 years.
And what a beautiful symbol of his father, this soda fountain pharmacist, old-timey thing. That's really cool.
So, it brought me to tears.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So one thing about the soda fountain I learned is that earlier that week before, his dad went back to that pharmacy, which is now a restaurant, and he met his fellow soda fountain jerks from the 1950s.
Cool.
So Ed was there.
Wow, that's so cool.
So then I said to his dad, okay, well, what does jingle mean? And he stopped and he said, I'm not sure. And then he got up and he ran in the other room. And I said, where are you going? He says, well, I have a room here where I keep some of the keepsakes from Ed after he passed. Well, he picked up a can that was specially made for Ed by Ed's friends. And on it says, Jingle Java.
Oh, cool.
Friends made him that can because he always drank a lot of coffee and he would throw his coins in it.
Very cool.
So that was the jingle.
Super evidentiary proof. Love it.
Then we went on. His dad took us to meet Ed's brother and sister-in-law. And Ed's brother and sister-in-law didn't know that I'm a medium.
Uh-huh.
So, and I didn't say anything, and neither did his dad.
Right.
So we got to the front door of the house, and his brother came out, and he said, and in the driveway was a brand new boat. Okay. So the brother said hello to his dad and hello to us, and he said, do you like my new boat? And he said, I just got it last week. I've taken it out a couple of times last week, And I've gone rowing in it and fishing in it. And we thought, okay, that's a rowboat. Well, it was under a cover. So we didn't think anything of it. And his dad just looked at me like, what the hell is going on here? So we went in, we briefly met his wife and his boys, and then we came back out, and we were standing on the stairs, and his dad was at the foot of the stairs, and Ed's brother said, you know that, he said, I'm so excited about this boat because it's actually a kayak, and it's made of the same material as a kayak.
Oh.
His dad flipped out, and he looked at us, he looked at Tom and I, and he grabbed our arms, and he said, we need to go. So that was amazing. There's a rowboat that's also a kayak.
Right.
All of these weird, disconnected things that made no sense.
Yes. Well, they wouldn't make sense because our left brain does not understand symbols or words from the subconscious all the time. And that's the trick of mediumship, or the challenge of mediumship, is to have the confidence to say things that sound totally crazy to us, to other people, you know, and it's sort of like, okay, I'm going to sound like a total idiot. And then find out that jingle is very specific, boat, kayak, you know, very specific, soda fountain pharmacist, very specific. So, and it's proof that they're with us, that they do have the ability to check in with us in our life and to be present for things, and to be able to talk about the past, the present, and the future with us. What was the blue book thing? We've got about just a few minutes here before the end of our show.
Well, there were two more signs. One was Duke and Duchess. He kept saying something like Duke and Duchess.
Oh, okay.
It turned out that one of the famous recipes down there in, I think it's Lynchburg, is called the constant. The spaghetti dish that was made by royalty. So that's the Duke and Duchess part. And
interesting. Did you guys eat that or just find it on a menu? How did you?
Ed's dad told us about it when I mentioned Duke and Duchess came through, and he said Ed's aunt just made that spaghetti dish last week. Every single sign was for the week before.
You know, that's weird because I just got a cookbook from a friend in Lynchburg, and I think it had something in there about Duke and Duchess. Unfortunately, I've already donated it to Goodwill, so I don't know. Oh my God, how cool.
So it was actually a recipe for Countess Raffalovich's spaghetti. Mm-hmm. And she used to make that on special occasions. Mm. So the blue book, this was the kicker, and I know we have a couple minutes.
Yes.
Before I left for Virginia, I went into Borders Books before they were closing, and I walked around the store for like an hour and a half, leaving my husband in the car, and I came out with one book. Mm-hmm. And he said, all that time for that? And I said, I didn't even go in for this, but it looked interesting. For some reason, I was drawn over there, and I picked it up. Mm-hmm. Ed's dad didn't know what the blue book was. So we left, and a week later, he sent us a letter. And in the letter, he said, I was looking downstairs when I happened to look through the book in which I had stuck some things years ago. The book had been sent to me by a cousin after Ed died. And he said, the book's a collection of stories recounting after-death contact experiences by people who have lost loved ones. So he said the book was a lifesaver for him, and he reread it for 2 or 3 years. And he said the front and back covers are blue as well as the jacket. I've enclosed 2 pictures.
Awesome. Isn't it cool that he used that symbol to really communicate with his father, to really prove to his dad what had his dad had I hate it when people say, well, I don't know if I believe in life after. It's not a religion. You don't have to believe, it just is. But, well, what was his father's mindset before this? Was he open to that? He had,
Yeah, he was pretty open to it.
oh,
Here's
very cool.
here's the ironic part. So just before my husband turned over the photographs of the book, I jumped up and I ran upstairs. And he called after me. He said, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" And I brought the book that I was currently reading, and I actually brought it to the hotel when we were down there. And we turned over the picture and the book cover at the same time. It was the exact same book, Hello from Heaven.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. The same book. Oh, that's so cool. That's a great example of how we as mediums channel unconsciously. Sometimes the gestures, sometimes the phrases, sometimes the words, sometimes the actual book. That is just too cool. That is just too cool. Rob, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show again. Just was looking forward to it and have enjoyed it, having you on the show thoroughly. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for letting me share those stories, and I hope they give people some comfort to know that their loved ones are always giving them signs.
Oh, yes. Yes, they can prove that they're here. It might not be name, address, and phone number, but it will be something extraordinary, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Rob. If you do want to reach Rob, you can find him on Facebook at Rob Gutro, and that's Gutro, author, medium. So just put that in and you'll find him. Or you can find him on his website at ghostsandsspiritsinsights.blogspot.com. I hope that you have enjoyed this show. If you'd like to find past episodes, as I mentioned, they're on YouTube. And if you'd like to find me, you can find me on my website, which is mediumtraceylockwood.com, and that's always spelled with an EY, Tracey, medium Tracey, lockwood.com. And you can also text me directly on my cell at 540-998-9789. We'll look forward to seeing you next week for a view of life from a medium's perspective. And I hope that you remember that it is never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, you have nothing. I'm going to close the show with a blessing. I guess I'm not going to have time, but I'm going to just wish you peace and wish you prosperity and wish you the ability to see the things that are real, which means that they may not be visible to your eye, but they are the most important things in life. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to next week on From a Medium's Perspective. Again, if you would like to find me, you can find me at mediumtraceylockwood.com or friend me on Facebook at Psychic Medium Tracey Lockwood. I will see you next week for a view of life from a medium's perspective. And remember, it's never inappropriate to be kind. And without integrity, you have nothing.